What's up, everyone? How's it going? Welcome to this week's pre-week analysis. This is going to be the week of September 8th to September 12th, I believe. Hold on, let me double check. Yep, September 8th to September 12th. And I'm very excited to see how this week goes. We were pretty inactive for the last 2 to 3 weeks, and we're starting to ease back into the original trading schedule. Morning pre-market analysis, pardon me. Then evening we have our trade recap market analysis session, and every week we will have a pre-week analysis session and potentially a backtesting session on that off day as well. So looking forward to getting back to that original schedule. I just has been caught up with a lot of different things regarding education, but we should be back to that normal schedule. So let's go ahead and start off by checking out what type of news there is for this week. So if you pull up on Forex Factory, what we see is that on Monday we don't really have much to worry about. It's essentially a no news Monday. Tuesday we again don't really have anything really crazy that we have to worry about. Wednesday we have PPI, which I would assume means that Thursday is CPI. Yep. So Thursday, CPI day, might be able to leverage that increased volatility to make higher movement plays, but we'll have to see. And on Friday we have nothing really we have to worry about on Friday other than consumer sentiment and inflation expectations from the University of Michigan. So there's that. So essentially just CPI, PPI week. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, it should be a more careful day, I guess. You should be more risk aware because we might be working with higher levels of volatility, which could result in higher rewards. But what's more important than that is it could be associated with higher risk. The one thing that we want to manage to ensure longevity and for risk and edge preservation. So you want to ensure that. I'm just going to go ahead now and look at financial juice, see if there's anything we're missing. Let's see. Monday, not seeing anything. Tuesday, not seeing anything. Wednesday, we have PPI. Thursday, CPI. Friday, Michigan. So yeah. Wait a minute. Hold on. September 12th. Yeah, Michigan. Yeah. So I mean, Forex Factory did a pretty good job in letting us know what's to be expected. Now that we have given that, we can go ahead and perform our technical analysis. But one thing I am going to do is I'm going to pause this video right here and I'll come back. You guys won't even tell that I paused the video. I'm just going to go ahead and open my footprint chart so I can use that and leverage that in this week's pre-week analysis as well. I'll be back in 3, 2, 1. And we're back. So we open up the footprint chart. I'm going to pull it up on a higher time frame. Let's go to 1 hour and see if we can leverage whatever we see in terms of delta action on the footprint to further validate or provide more emphasis onto certain regions. So as we see, so let me just go on a daily chart for a better context picture. But essentially, we've been continuing to go in this upwards choppy consolidation range. We aren't breaking highs. We aren't breaking highs stronger than previously. It's showing an uptrend, but showing a weakness within that uptrend. Yeah, it's gonna basically be my words from first glimpse, but let's just continue marking out everything to analyze. I'm not gonna mark out too far or too wide simply because it's not worth for an intraday perspective. So we'll mark out all the zones and levels that we see on the 4-hour and the higher time frames. I'm gonna assume there's gonna be a zone there, just not on the 4-hour. Not yet, at least. Okay, we'll mark out these lows. 4 hour here. Um, let's see. Hold on. Okay, we're back. It's gonna be main liquidity there. Main liquidity at these lows. And down here as well. We're gonna mark out these lows as well. This is gonna be the lowest point I mark out. It's highly unlikely that we get from up there all the way down there in the span of 1 week. If you do start approaching these lower levels, I would be more than happy to redo some charting and mark out levels below that as well and reanalyze what has been going on. But for now, in the 4 hour, that's gonna be the lowest area which I mark out. I will mark this out. We might have to remove certain zones simply because there's a handful of them, and we want to only use the most significant ones in terms of analysis because what we see on order flow will be a better indication of where price will go next, given that our edge is continuing to be valid. So let's hop on to 3 hours, see if there's anything we notice there. Not seeing anything there, this area. Let's keep going. Mm, we could mark out this level, but this essentially covers that. I'm gonna mark out this level though. 3 hour there. Main liquidity below. Yeah, that's essentially all I see on the 3 hour. Move on to the 2 hour. It does look like we have a zone there. I do want to see it being cleaner without this being like weirdly misplaced in the middle. So I'll see if it's there on the lower time frame. If not, we'll mark it on the 2 hour. Let's see. This tells us that we gap down. Yeah. So Sunday Asian markets or Monday Asian markets, we gap down. We quickly filled that gap and headed higher. Now we're looking to make a rebalance into this VWAP area or proper value region, which might lead me to believe that we might want to continue going higher depending on how we react to this relative region. But that's just one quick idea, simply looking at price action from what I'm seeing right now. But let's keep seeing if there's anything additional we can mark on the 2 hour. Not seeing anything. Let's hop on 1 hour. Nothing there we can really mark out. This is rare. I don't usually do this, but I'm gonna mark out something like that, and I'll call it. Actually, I'll extend this up to the top. Let's see how that looks on the 2 hour. Yeah, that makes more sense. And we'll call this a 2 hour. And we'll mark out the corresponding liquidity regions associated with it as well. This is gonna be main. Yep. Let's see if there's anything we can mark. This would be a 1 hour, but the 4 hour captures that move, so I'm gonna leave it. Nothing else on the 1 hour. Let's hop on 30 minutes, see if there's anything close by. And then we'll quickly look at the volume profile and the footprint charts. I'm looking to be a bit more risk off this week or risk averse simply because I need to get back into looking at the markets, get back in the rhythm. 30-minute, I'm gonna assume there's not much we can mark out there. Yeah, not. I mean, we can mark out those lows in the zone there, but it's very close. That region is just gonna be that importance that we need. So I'm gonna hop on back onto the 1 hour time frame actually, and I'll look at what happened here, any significance that we found. Yep, I mean, we see selling delta here at the bottom, buying delta near at the top, potentially showing us that sellers were absorbed if that continuation occurred. And even if there's not, I don't want to overfit what I'm seeing to make an incorrect hypothesis. So I'm going to go ahead and leave this there simply as a gap fill type zone. But what's going to be more important to me is these lows and these levels right here. So if we go on to the top, we do see buyer absorption here. High buying delta, highest volume, right near the tops, aggressive selling following, and now we're seeing following. So this liquidity level is important. We did see buyer absorption at that level, so that's pretty significant from what I'm seeing. Good thing we didn't mark out that one. Let's go all the way to these highs, see if there's anything. Yep, as you can see, buyer absorption there, high volume, stack and cluster of buying delta, followed by aggressive selling delta with volume. That's what we want and like to see. Maybe we can mark out this range as a supply zone starting at from, let's see, starting from the bottom of this candle body to the top. That would be pretty significant in my opinion. I'll just mark this out as all-time high. All-time high zone. There we go. Let me just go down and see this area as well. This area we're not seeing much. We do have volume there. We do have selling delta near the bottom, and we do have volume here. Nothing really invalidating it, but nothing really providing emphasis on it either. Here at this bottom is a good one. We have high volume, high selling delta, unable to break through, seller absorption, or at least a sign of seller absorption that provides more emphasis onto this as compared to this region. That's why, as you can see, this one is main liquidity and this one is typical liquidity. And usually, main liquidity is more significant than typical liquidity. So let's zoom out and move back into these regions as well. Is it this area? Yep. All right, let's see. This area, we do see volume at the bottom. This region, we do have buyer volume, not really any seller absorption per se, but yeah, because this is within very low volume. Low volume, and then the volume starts growing. And then this region is where we have that buying. But we do come back into that region and reject, so I'm going to keep it there. We had a large amount of volume. Buyers and sellers were fighting at this area, and it turned out buyers came out on top. Nothing is invalidating. Let's go down here now. Yep. This area, I like to see this buying delta here. It's showing us that when we came to these lows, sellers didn't get absorbed, but we did see a clear introduction of buying, which is a good sign for a zone. There's different types of zones, of course. There's absorption zones and there's delta zones. This one happens to be a delta zone. Let's go back to the other one. This one, I believe. Yep. This one is not as clear, so I'm not liking this one, but we did see a clear tap and touch, so I'm gonna leave it there as well. We can't, okay, we have to go on to the 4 hour. Move on to the 4 hour here. Not all is 4 hour anyways. That is gonna be that region, this region, okay. This region is what we're working with. These levels I'm gonna stick with no matter what, simply because of that clear double touch. We see an imbalance actually. This one was with high volume as well, so I'm gonna keep this one. Big battle between buyers and sellers, as you can see though. If you had a 1 hour, maybe we could see more specified data near at the bottom, but we don't, but that's okay. Let's go back to this region, which would mean it's down here. Yep. Want to see absorption or buying delta here, and that's actually pretty perfect. For example, would be a sign of absorption or a likely absorption zone. Why? Very aggressive selling delta near at the bottom, right? And let's just mark out a zone here, right? Mark something out like this. Only focus on that selling absorption region, right, with volume, which would relatively be this area. If you go ahead and extend that, I can almost guarantee that that's going to be the region where price rejected off of compared to this bigger zone. And with that being said, that allows us to put more specificity onto our zones. And you know what? I'm actually going to move this down into there. And yeah, we can leave it at that. This is going to be a touch. Yep. So I'm going to actually squeeze this more to be more specific. It's at 338. So we save at least 10 ticks on. Hold on 1 second. 338. There we go. 338. There we go. And the bottom range is 321.25. There we go. Yep. You see how much specificity this adds? If you look, this specific zone captured this right at the 50% level more than our original zone. And that's the benefit of order flow as well. You get very specific data that provides a higher edge than simple technical analysis. And when it comes to trading, that's all that matters. Even a small difference can make the biggest difference. I know this sounded weird, but even the smallest difference can make the biggest change. There we go. This area would work out. I'm seeing volume there, and that provides a decent signal. Let's go to these lows. Oh wow, this is very interesting. Trying to think about what could have happened here. 1 p.m. first. This could be something happened here. Look at this clear normal curve that we're seeing here with extreme volume as well. Volume is very condensed at this one region, and that makes me believe that this one region is very significant. Next candle we did push below that region, but ooh, this actually is very cool. Look at this, right? Here, big buying delta, big volume cluster. Here, we have big selling delta right around that volume cluster. So I'm liking that. That we could definitely leverage. This region is important. And I'm actually going to mark out a zone at that region. So let's see. So let's say 29 to 29 to 670. 29 to 670. 29. 59. Let's mark that out. 59 to 70. There we go. This zone is important. Important. I need to work on my diction a bit more. Alright, there you go. That works out. We can call this a volume cluster zone. Right at these lows that we're talking about as well. So if we do make a pretty big size retracement, we might head down to this region and then reject off of this low region as compared to coming all the way down to these all-time lows. So I'm trying to think. Okay, we missed out on one factor, and I do want to mark that out. Volume at this 2 hour, that's good to hear, and volume, let's extend it. Volume here, volume there as well. A lot of volume there, actually. Okay, so from what I'm seeing, I would expect price to likely return down to this relative region, and from that, I would want to see a continued movement upwards. If we don't see that, I would not expect to see movement down here and then see something of that nature, like such. Something like this. If we continue moving down, I would want to see a reaction at this region. That's going to be my preferable analysis, simply based on what we saw in ES and the footprint and volume profile, of course. And let's think about why. Large volume cluster around this region. We do have decent volume around this region, or that big volume node really is encompassing this entire thing. And as we move down, we don't have crazy volume here, but it's going to remain as a zone. We do see volume here though. So if we break lower, I would expect price to head down more to this region. So once and if we break this level, I wouldn't be I would expect price to likely lower down until this general region where that volume is being generated. But what I would prefer, simply looking at how the market's been moving and simply following a trend and momentum, I would expect price to continue moving upwards and follow that clean trend that we've been seeing, as it's the first 15 days of the month as well. So definitely want to see what happens regarding that. But let's go ahead and see what's happening on NQ as well. And first thing I want to do before I mark out anything is look at how the price action has been. And I'm going to compare that to what has been seen on ES. Okay, so what I've been seeing is they both are showing movement upwards, but recently NQ has made a lower low and we finally made a higher high. What this might be indicating is that price, like during the last week, let's see, yeah, during the last week or so of August, we saw different price action as compared to the rest of the trend. And now that we're back into September, we're seeing a continuation of that. So I would expect price to start making new higher lows, higher highs. If we don't, then we're gonna have to reanalyze and see what happens. But that's essentially what I believe that ES and NQ are leading me on to believe. As always, this is just a hypothesis. Our intraday perspective takes a small piece of this overall pre-week analysis and applies it to apply micro biases to help base more fundamental. It helps to base more trades that are based on the overall higher time frame context and fundamentals. Alright, sorry if I blowed into the mic there. Let's mark out those highs, these highs, and there's a lot of highs as you can see. Alright, cool, cool, cool. Mm, 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 mm. Just marking everything that we need to out. That would work as well. I'm not gonna mark it though. I'm gonna mark that region out as well. Alright, cool. 3 hour. As you can see here, there are quite a bit of zones. Mark them out. Let's extend this down here so it captures this move as well. I don't want to double dip on one move touch type deal. Alright, there we go. I'll mark out this high as well. There we go. This is good. Two-hour there. I'm being quiet while I'm charting this out simply because um because the goal of charting out NQ is to see if there's any additional information that we get that was non-ES for us to potentially use to build our context and framing behind our game plan for the week. Not seeing anything else on the 2 hour though. Let's continue. Let's head on to the 1 hour. Alright, nothing else. So, let's mark out a volume profile as well. Why not? Volume there, volume down there. Okay. Volume, hold on. Let's turn around this region. Okay, that's quite interesting. Okay. What I can say is that if we break below this level, it's highly likely that we head down into this 4 hour. And it wouldn't be unreasonable if price does start to retrace to head into this entire region, which does locate many of our liquidity zones. Let's extend this even further. This lower region, okay. I mean, that's honestly perfect as to what we were looking for. It's just showing us that price, the value in which price wants to be traded on NQ is around this region right here, between this high and this low. But we do have volume near this high as well, and these are all-time highs as well. And high volume nodes either act as magnets and rejection levels. So, if we're able to come into this region, see a clear movement and aggression towards the upside, it's a pretty clear signal that we're likely going to head all the way up before we see our next movement down. So potentially that's something we can play off of, but honestly, nothing is changing my views from what I saw in ES. So I would expect to see something of this nature, but be, I would not, I would not expect for this to happen. And we should be able to play it out if this outcome does occur. So honestly, whatever we saw in RQ doesn't invalidate what we saw in ES at all. It honestly just further validates it. So essentially, we expect price to retrace into the high volume node. From that retracement, we expect to see price continue upwards, and if price makes micro retracements within that upwards move, that's how we're going to play it out. But if price shows aggression, okay, hold on. Oh my god. Okay. If price shows aggression towards the downside, then we should be able to capture those micro retracements continuing that downside move. And when we're down to a certain level, which is our liquidity levels, and we see a clear aggressive reaction from that regarding the buyers, then we might be able to continue those micro retracements and adjustments towards the upside. We're trying to follow where the capital is going, not oppose it. And that's essentially just the basis of our strategy. What I do want to do next, before I conclude, is go ahead and look at the VIX. What we see is that the VIX has been staying around this relative region. We see that in recent days, whenever we come down to this recent zone, we've always seen a rejection until usually relatively this 18 level. 18 level does seem to be that majority, or at least that 17 region. So I'm going to just mark out a clear zone there just for our impact. What I see now is that, let's see. I mean, I don't see price not going higher. We see price came down to this region, pushed up into that 17 region, then we start seeing aggression lower again. So I do expect price to continue going to the upside, but in the near future, I wouldn't, but in the short future, I would expect a retracement as well. But what matters more is that in the short term, we do expect price to continue down on the VIX, which means up on ES. So essentially, that's all that we have to talk about in this pre-week analysis. We do expect price to continue heading higher, but we may require a retracement before we do so. If that doesn't happen, we would expect price to continue down and test our other levels before continuation towards the upside if that occurs. And no matter the situation, we'll be looking to follow the same framework of following major capital and capturing onto these micro retracements that provide us good entries within proper value. And I'm really looking forward to it in this upcoming week. If you have any questions regarding anything that I've mentioned in this video, please feel free to leave a comment down below or join the completely free Discord server in the link in the description down below. Additionally, you can also use ORDERFLOW, Addis, and Bookmap for completely free if you take advantage of those links in the description below as well. Addis is probably one of the most user-friendly footprint charts that I've used ever, and I've used quite a lot of footprint charts, and they have a lot of free functionality to get started and start testing your strategy using ORDERFLOW. I'm pretty sure you can get a 15-minute delay with the footprint charts for completely free, which is pretty good. You can definitely start testing your strategy to make sure ORDERFLOW is actually a good fit, all for completely free. You don't even have to keep your credit card, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, definitely recommend you to check it out. But as always, do your own research. And yeah, that's all I have here for today. If you have, yeah, I'm not going to repeat what I said. That's all I have. And I'll see you guys tomorrow morning for the pre-market analysis, pre-market live. I'll see you guys tomorrow morning for pre-market live and later tomorrow for market analysis session. As you can see, I'm getting back into this YouTube thing. So I'm excited to see you guys and continue. So I'll see you guys then. Goodbye.